Hi, Jasmin. Thank you so much for coming on Thrival Nutrition Podcast. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Yes. Feel free to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into it. I know we're talking motherhood and all that fun stuff. So go ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay, well, my name is Jasmin Terrany. I like to call myself a life therapist. So essentially, I created the combination of psychotherapy and life coaching integrated with mindfulness and meditation. And so what I do is I call it life therapy. So I've been in private practice for over a decade now, and I've been seeing clients individually over Skype and phone, but now I'm actually expanding. I'm a new author, and I am just about to launch my book called Extraordinary Mommy, a loving guide to mastering life's most important job.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so like your mom, obviously.
I'm a mom. Yes.
So is your journey through motherhood what kind of got you into this?
Yeah, so you ready? You want to hear the whole story?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay.
As a mom, I'm ready.
Are you a mom too?
Yes, I have two.
Oh, you do? You look so young.
I am. I started when I was 18. So I have a
Oh,
7-year-old and a 4-year-old.
wow. Okay, so then this is going to resonate. So anyway, I grew up in a home that most people would consider far from ordinary. My mailbox was a big pink heart. Every post going up to the doorway to my house was a different pastel color. The border around my house was purple. Every cabinet in my kitchen was a different color, and there were wall hangings of ice cream sundaes and hearts and illuminated signs of love and hot pink leather couches. I mean, it was kind of this, my friends used to call it Willy Wonka's factory. It was this, just this love, fun, happy, warm love bubble. And, you know, it was all based on my mom's commitment to living from love. She meditated for an hour a day, and she was highly kind of plugged in and to the divine and spiritual, and was really aware of what mattered most, and focused on helping us live and enjoy life to the fullest. So I grew up in this world where I think on some level I was aware of how unique it was. You know, my friends would come over and be like, wow, your mom's so cool, I can't believe, and she'd come and make us cookies. It was kind of this happy place that everyone would kind of retreat to. And on some level I felt unworthy. I think that I didn't earn it, that I didn't do anything to deserve it. I was aware that it was rare to have this type of parenting and upbringing, to have it just be so good, you know, to have it be really, really good. And so on some level, I'd never wanted to boast. I kind of downplayed it. I didn't want to make people feel bad, you know. I never wanted to be like, well, sorry for you.
My mom's better than yours.
Yeah, so I kind of downplayed it. And then, it wasn't just the happy stuff, but it was the depth and the ability to talk to her and listening. And, you know, all my girlfriends would always come and talk to her about their dramas. It was this kind of awesome. Real, on every level, not just the highs, but the heart and meat of life that she really got, and made it very easy to lean on her and to be taken care of. And so, you know, I had my son, you know, I went through my life and started my practice and all these things and got married and what have you. And, you know, I had a 1-year-old son, and my mom, at the time I live in Miami. I was living in Miami, and my mom was living in Sarasota, where I grew up. My dad's involved in the whole picture too, but, you know, this is more about her. She was the leader. He was like the co-pilot, you know. He went along with the hot pink couches, and he let her like lead the house. She said sure, he was there, but she
domain.
Yeah, she was the main event. But anyway, she was coming to visit me for the weekend from Sarasota, and was coming to meet me for my lunch. So it was like a 4-hour drive, and she was on the highway, and she never showed up. And so, you know, I called my dad, have you heard from her, the whole thing. And neither of us had heard from her. We found out that there had been a fatal accident. And, you know, someone had been driving south on the highway, lost control of their car, went all the way across the entire grass median, got hit by oncoming traffic, and that was it. And so I'm never going to forget the call. You know, my dad called screaming, like foaming at the mouth, like terror. Like, my wife is dead. My wife is dead. Take me with you. You know, I want to die. Take me with you. And he's bawling and I'm screaming and my wife is dead, you know, and he was driving the car and I was terrified that he was going to kill himself. The whole thing was crazy. And it was just this realization that she was gone. Like, this was it. There wasn't, nothing could be said, nothing could be done. And that was it. And so, you know, I had this moment, we hung up the phone and I was by myself and I looked out the window. And at the time I lived on the ocean and I saw like the sunlight was kind of kissing the waves, you know, how there's this like peace when you just see those like little gentle sparkles in the ocean. And I just had this deep sense of, like, as tears are pouring down my cheeks, I could feel her, you know, speak through my soul. And she said, "You're okay. It's going to be okay. You're the mother now." And so it was at that moment, I realized that, I don't know, that this was my gift. It was a really profound thing that I hadn't suffered. I hadn't experienced pain to that degree ever. And on some level, you know, I had been a therapist for quite some time and I knew that, you know, I had all these theories about how to deal with pain and how to deal with emotions and how, you know, I have all these in theories and I have practices in place and I'm a meditator and all these things, but I had never had to use it to that extent. And this was my gift to go through it, to feel and to experience and to utilize all the tools that I had developed. So, you know, from then on, the next year was like the hardest year of my life, and dealing with my father and a 1-year-old son and a house renovation and a husband and my, you know, just all of it. And like daily breakdowns. I mean, crying every single day. And, you know, this was like my person, you know, this was my best friend, my rock, my everything. And the best of all the grandparents. Sorry, grandparents, but she was. She was the best one. And then, you know, on the actual anniversary of her death, I got the most incredible gift of my life. So I was essentially, I had this little rumble in my tummy, and I leave the house and I tell my husband, "I think today's going to be the day." And he goes, "No way." And needless to say, I left the house and went into labor. I had been pregnant with my daughter, and went and started having contractions on the actual anniversary of my mom's death. And I came home, because I had home births. So I came home within an hour of going out, coming back, filled up the tub, and I gave birth to my daughter on that day.
So amazing.
Yeah, it really, really was. And, you know, my father had been, you know, I told him that I was going into labor. He started driving. He was driving to us on that road where she had died. And so when we called him to tell him that my daughter was born, he was at the same mile marker, 64.
Oh my gosh.
Where she had died when he found out that the daughter was born. And then, you want the full version or the short version of the story?
No, you go. You keep going. You're bringing tears to my eyes. This is way too soon in the episode.
Sorry. This wasn't what you were expecting.
I love it. It's powerful.
Okay. So my dad gets the call. She had died at mile marker 64, which was interesting because she was age 64. And it was the week before her 65th birthday. I had planned a 65th surprise birthday party for her. We had a cruise planned 50 people from around the world had tickets to come to her birthday party. And her birthday ended up being her funeral, and everyone was already booked to be there.
Well, I guess that worked out. I guess
Yes.
you had the best funeral for the best mom.
Right. So, and she had been like giving me books about spirituality, afterlife, reincarnation, all these things since I was a kid. Like this was part of my upbringing, almost like eerily preparing me for this. So if anyone was going to be letting us know that there's more going on, it would be her. But then there's one more part of the story, which is that my brother, so there's only two of us. A few months earlier, he tells me he went to Harvard. He was a government major and decided to get into the movie industry and make a movie. Okay, so he tells me a few months earlier, Jazz, you're never going to believe this. Our movie got into Sundance Film Festival. And this was a huge deal. Sundance Film Festival is a really big deal. I think it's like 12,000 people apply, 200 get in. I mean, it's something really special. But then he tells me, get this, Sundance Film Festival begins on January 22nd, 2016. The festival began on the anniversary of my mom's death, the same day that I gave birth to my daughter. And then his movie won Sundance Film Festival.
Wow.
Isn't that nuts?
That's nuts. That's really awesome. It's like she was with you for such a tragic day, but she brought joy into it.
Right, exactly. It was as if like the one who was celebrating life at all costs, there was like no way for us to not celebrate the most painful day on the calendar, you know, and all of a sudden.
She's like, you're not going to be sad today.
No, not allowed. This becomes the most divine. So with that said, you know, after this day, this event, all of these kind of confirmations, I just had this book start pouring through me. And it was this realization that I don't have her here anymore. And I don't have this guidance of this extraordinary mom that I was blessed to receive. And so I wanted to kind of bottle up these core principles that I grew up with that made it so, not just like the hearts and the candy and the what all, but the depth of her presence and the quality of parenting and how she was able to show up for us with such an intensity and intention and clarity and love. And so I created this book, just kind of came through me. And it was mostly for myself so that as a new mom, I wouldn't forget all these things. And I kind of had these principles to come back to as a new mom. And when things are hard and I want to cry and I want to scream and I don't know what to do or whatever, it's just this kind of Bible, if you will, of no, come back. This is what's most important. And so I've created this book, and it's my third child. And it's essentially these 10 main principles that I received from my mom. And it's from the perspective of being parented. Like I can't claim to be an expert parent because I just have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. So I haven't been through it yet. But as a new mom and as a therapist, you know, come from the perspective of professionally what's most important, and you know, creating this beautiful kind of nuggets of wisdom for us to refer to whenever times get tough.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, I think that's all of our what we want to be, you know, when we ideally want to grow old and die, and we want to be cherished and admired by our kids. And so I think that's a great way to look at it, is looking at through, you know, what your mom did that made you, like, obviously you adored her. And like you said, she was your rock. And I think all moms want that with their kids. They want that relationship. So I think that, you know, even though you're not an expert parent personally yet, you've probably experienced awesome parenting from your mom.
Right.
And we all know that motherhood is crazy, right? You want to cry and scream and all the craziness. So I know moms struggle with being more present and being more mindful. So what are some applicable things that moms can do? I know I'm getting meditation. I'm sure it's a big thing.
Well, yeah, for sure. I mean, I think when you think about it, it's like there's nothing more powerful than a mother's love. Right? I mean, that love that you have for that child, there's nothing like it. And there's nothing stronger than that. But for whatever reason, the challenge of life can keep us from living through that love, that we can get distracted from it. We can, you know, get caught up in kind of the waves of life. Yeah. And the idea is like, how do we have practices to bring us down to to that, the stillness of the ocean floor, of that clarity of, no, this is really what matters most. So, you know, in my book, I have some core grounding principles to find gratitude. I have like a few little things that you can say to yourself. So one is at least. I think that just using the term at least we're all together. At least we're healthy. At least whatever. You can start with, my kid is freaking insane right now and won't put on their clothes and running around the house and screaming and whatever. At least he's healthy and able-bodied, and, you know, finding your at least can help put things in perspective really quickly.
Yeah.
I think another one is, so what? Okay, so what if we're late to school? So what if he doesn't brush his teeth? So what if somebody thinks his clothes don't match? So what if, whatever, like a so what helps put things in perspective really quickly to help you come back to really what matters most.
It's so funny, what you said about the at least. My daughter, she was in her room and she came out to the kitchen and her hair is like this short and her hair is like down to here, and I kept pulling it and hair just kept coming out. And so obviously my first thing is I freak out and I'm just like, oh my gosh, why is she losing hair? Like, I start thinking chronic health issues.
Right.
And obviously we're very healthy, thankfully. And I just like looked at my husband and I like wanted to cry. I was like, oh my God, I just don't know. And I just kept pulling it. And so we walked in her room and there were scissors and there was her hair. And I didn't even care that she cut her hair.
Right.
I would have been mad, you know,
Right.
but I was just so thankful. It was just her cutting her hair.
Yeah.
That perspective shift was like,
oh, I know.
I don't even
wow.
care.
I just got emotional thinking about it. That's huge, right? You go from the moment of, oh my God, something may be really wrong with my child, to everything's okay.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really big point in terms of coming back to what matters most. Is one of the things that I really gained from my mom is that we avoid mortality. We don't talk about death and dying in general. We don't want to talk about it. We're scared of it. Everything keeps us from going there. And I think and I think that bringing that reality into our day-to-day awareness helps us live more fully and helps us understand the things that matter and the things that don't matter. Like, when you know that it's not guaranteed that your kid's going to wake up tomorrow. It's not guaranteed that your partner is going to wake up tomorrow. It's not guaranteed you're going to send them off to school and something's not going to happen. You don't have any guarantees. And if you actually, not to live in fear that something would happen, that's not what I'm suggesting, but to understand that, let me know what really matters. Is it more important that or is it more important that I pause my life, hug them and kiss them, so that God forbid something happens, that this is the last moment that I have with them? Like, if you think that each moment that you have may be the last, it changes your whole dynamic of how you engage with them. And I think even losing my mom, that was one of the biggest things that I took away, was that there was nothing left unsaid. There was nothing left undone. There wasn't, I wish I could have asked her this. I wish I would have known this. I mean, she died in like one random sunny afternoon. Like, it wasn't expected. She wasn't sick. She was super healthy. Like, there was no reason to think it would happen. But yet she lived her life so intentionally with this awareness of mortality, like right at the forefront, just as her theme, that there were no loose strings, you know, and there were no regrets. And there's nobody who would say, oh, well, that last conversation I had with her, I wish that we would have said, I love you, you know, like, I love you was the end of every single conversation. The hug and the kiss were part of every interaction, you know, and when you live like that, then it's a pretty powerful reminder, I think.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. If you told me I was going to die tomorrow, I would obviously live today, like loving and just like not caring about what other people are thinking or whatever else. I mean, it is all about like perspective, which kind of brings me into like my next question of like, it's so easy in motherhood to like get the opinions from different judgments and mommy wars. And I don't know, it could be everything from vaccinating to non-vaccinating to formula feeding to breastfeeding. I mean, there's just so much judgment and obviously so many choices in motherhood, but how can we, start to not let this affect us? And, you know, I know perspective shift, what you said, is huge, but I can see moms, especially in mom groups, like
Yeah,
we
no,
take it
it's hard.
personal, and it like it can affect the rest of your day, which is so.
Oh, for sure. Well, I think it's really important to realize that across time and cultures, things have been done differently. And that there's no right and wrong way to do this. If your kid, I mean, granted, if your kid is safe and loved as the baseline, whether or not you breastfeed, whether or not you home birth, whether or not you whatever, it's up to you and your family to figure out what's right for you and your family and what works within the context of your home. And everything's subjective. And so what works for some doesn't work for others. And the assumption that it should is silly. And I think something that's really helpful for me is taking other people's opinions is like, consider the source. Do you want to live that life that they are living?
Right.
On all levels, right? So,
Right.
you know, if that is the life that you aspire to have, then for sure take it into consideration. But if it's just an opinion of some other random person whose life you don't aspire to have, then who cares?
I love that. I actually, me and my husband talk about that all the time, because obviously we have so many friends in different aspects. Some of our business friends and successful, our church friends. And I always tell them, like, you have to, like, you can't get financial advice from someone that isn't where your financial goals are. Like,
Right, exactly.
that
That's
want to
so
live
true.
a smaller life.
Right.
If you want to live a smaller life, right, like, take advice, but you can't like take advice to grow a business and become successful from someone that just wants to live a small life. It just doesn't work that way. And that's, like you said, every aspect of life: finances, business, family, everything.
For sure. And the idea of motherhood being oh shoot, I just lost my thought. I'll keep going. It'll come back, I'm sure. I just had it. It will come back. You know, I hate those moments.
I hate when that happens too. So give us some of your top 3 tips on surviving motherhood and just raising good kids, things that your mom did that, you know, you look back and you love and you want to bring that into parenting your kids.
Well, I think first and foremost, with all due respect, is to change the question, because it's not about surviving motherhood.
Right.
It's about really enjoying motherhood and realizing what a blessing it is and what a gift it is, and cherishing those hugs and those moments. And you know that there's
Well, surviving comes more from, you know, the times you want to rip your hair out and the kids
okay.
are going crazy.
Right. Yes, that is very true. Okay. With that,
I wish motherhood was all like gems and roses. And I only have a 7-year-old, so I haven't even gotten to the teen years. I don't know how they are. You know, I've heard things about it, but definitely.
okay.
Like,
So then step number 1 is to think about the creation of a peaceful household to be one of your core objectives.
okay.
So if you have in mind that we have a household in which we speak a certain way, in which we interact a certain way, in which we listen in a certain way, that you're setting the tone of the environment that you want to live in and that your kids grow up in. So that the expectation is, if everyone's yelling at each other all the time, then that's normal, right?
Right.
But if you know, raising a voice is a strange thing, then it becomes less and less. Like, that's not how we talk to each other.
I think like Italian families. That's loudly and stuff.
Well, and I mean, listen, and
normal.
And that comes back to, you know, your preferences. Some people like that because that means that there's energy and there's life and there's fire and there's caring and all these things. So, you know, it's a matter of setting the tone for the type of home that you want to have, and to see all these challenges of the survival challenging moments as your lessons, right? Is that every time, I mean, I get a moment after moment. And now that I have this kind of book in my head, I'm like reminded, oh, this is what I do. This is what I got to do. Because I keep seeing the challenging moment and like hearing the words that I wrote on the paper. I'm like, okay, come back to this. But the idea of really, sorry, what were we saying? Coming back to this core concept of using your challenges to have growing experiences, so that when you feel the desire to yell, scream, run away, whatever, is okay, what do I need to be learning right now? How do I come back to my center? How do I find gratitude? How do I understand the deeper theme here? What is my child really asking for? I think a real big takeaway is to learn to be a detective, not a cop. Is that when your kid is doing something, the natural response is to want to be the cop on them and to regulate, versus being the detective to try to figure out why. And when that's actually didn't get into the book, but I've been thinking about that recently. Is like when you're a detective rather than a cop, then you're always trying to figure out like what's the root of why this isn't going right now, rather than just trying to force something. Is figuring out what's the underlying cause. It's like focusing on the source, not the symptoms. I think a lot of times we focus on the symptoms of like, you're crying and you don't need it, and trying to control it, versus getting to the root cause of why it's happening to begin with.
And I teach my son that even at school, if kids are being mean, I'm like, buddy, there's always something going on probably in the home. Then they're just bringing it to school. So like, don't, try to be kind. And, even as hard as it is of people, little kids being mean, but I mean, it's definitely the truth.
And yeah, one of my mom's favorite quotes was, when somebody is hardest to love is when they need it the most.
Oh.
And I think that's a really important one to always come back to. Like the times when my kid is the hardest to love, that's when they need it the most, and that's my learning, right? That's my strengthening of that mental, emotional muscle to come back to, okay, what's really going on here?
Right. And I definitely think that, surviving or even just enjoying motherhood, we have to make sure we're not lost completely in it. We have to make sure we're self-caring, right?
That's the second part of the book. It's all about your self-care, right?
Yeah.
That's the foundation of your home and your life. Like if you're not good, nobody's good.
Right. And I even find myself, everyone has different beliefs, but we're Christians. So like when I find myself not being in the word more and just kind of looking at something higher, I find myself more frustrated and stressed out and like thinking I'm in control of everything when I'm really not.
Right.
And so I find that that's like a part of my self-care, just like
that spiritual connection is huge, right? I think of like your self-care regimen as having 4 different categories, right? There's the spiritual component,
right.
which is fundamental. There's the psychological component, is like your mind and your thoughts and your negative thoughts and your self-deprecating thoughts. And then there's the emotional part of your feelings. And then there's the physical part of your body. And understanding that all 4 of those components are really the foundation of one's home, right? Of your home as a human, like that's the foundation of who you are. And then you are the foundation of the home that you live in, right? So your energy is contagious. You get to be the leader of the energy in the home. And if you're not taking care of yourself in all those ways, then they're going to be affected by you. And that was actually one of the biggest things that I learned growing up from my mom. She meditated for an hour a day. She exercised every day. She, there was never guilt about it. There was never any like feeling bad about it. Like she knew that if she was good, we were good. And so as much as we were prioritized above all, I would have to say that she prioritized herself at least as much, but she always made time for herself. And therefore she was able to show up for us in ways that were way better. I mean, the quality of the presence, I think, is way more important than the quantity.
Yes.
Maybe not more important, but at least equally important. Quantity is valuable too.
Right. I mean, that's with food too. Obviously the quality is way more important than the quantity of it.
Exactly. Well, with everything. I mean, I think we live in this society of more. And I just read this article that I think parents spend more time with their kids than ever, but it's much more distracted. Everyone's got a phone in their hand. Yeah. And I think that's another chapter of the book. But this idea of put down your phone, is that how to spend non-distracted time with your children. And not that you can't make time for other things, but really getting clear about the limits that you set for yourself. I have filters on my phone where I have it on Do Not Disturb when I'm around my kids. And I make specific times when I respond to things. And then when I'm with them, the phone's in the other room. And it's hard. I mean, I'm super conscious about it. And I realize—
Especially as a business owner, I'm sure you totally understand that. Yes. Like there's always something to do.
There's always something to do. But the idea of letting myself control my phone instead of the phone controlling me has been a real big shift of like, no, this is my time to be with my kids And so, and then this is work time, or this is respond to email time, or this is, you know, deciding in advance rather than just reacting and responding to everything as it comes and letting that take over my attention. Is take my attention from them.
Right. And I even, yeah, I think we all struggle with that, especially in this day and age, but even I struggle with it. And then when I feel like I'm constantly doing it, it's so overwhelming, and then my anxiety, and I'm just anxious. And it's when you have that nice, we have family rules we just created, and we follow them. And then we have a couple strikes, you know, they warning first and all that stuff.
Right.
But dinner time is, you know, no electronics. It's just where we catch up and talk on our day. I know that's like, it's awesome. It's like the cliche movie thing, but it's what families need. And I feel
even
like
just there, the fact that you think it's the cliche movie thing, right? Is that how do we change that conversation where we come
it's the norm.
It's the norm, and that this, I mean, even when like Bill Cosby is in jail, it's like, where's the wholesome, like, foundation of a healthy home as in our society? Like, where has that become? I feel like it's lost in terms of staring at screens all day, and you walk in a house, there's a noise going, and how do we come back to what really matters most, which is connecting with each other?
Yes, and that's so needed for we want that human connection.
For sure.
Friends and family and our kids, everything. We need it.
Mm-hmm.
And I know with motherhood, you know, our marriage can get a little strained, you know, because there's now new humans that take up all your time and your love, and they're very demanding. Okay?
They give you enough cuddles, so it's like when he starts coming, you're like, I don't need to.
Yeah, I remember breastfeeding, and I just got
don't touch him.
And I'm like, don't touch me. I've been touched all day. So like, how can we make sure that our marriage, our relationship is, you know, still good? Because I would say the toddler and infant times are the most trying in a marriage.
For sure. For sure. It's really important. Well, first and foremost, the hope is that you picked a good one.
Yeah, true. I think I did.
Yeah, because that helps a lot. You know, the quality of your partner and their awareness and their support of you. And then with that said, you know, I realized that one of the things that I think that my mom didn't do as well was that she prioritized us over my dad. And
that's common.
Yeah, and I think it is common. And I think she did it as a result because her parents prioritized each other over the kids. Like, she always felt like her parents, they would go on trips by themselves. They would get them the babies. Like, there was kind of this sense of like they were the most important, and then they came the kids. So she didn't want that for her kids. So she put us above my dad. And like I said, my dad was like, went with the flow. He was cool with it. I don't think
he's really awesome.
He obviously didn't even really realize, but I knew, and I realized since then that my tendency is to do the same thing, is to kind of like, he's kind of like second nature. Oh, well, he'll figure it out, whatever. Like,
he's an adult, right?
Huh?
I said he's an adult.
He's an adult. He'll figure it out. He doesn't need me. And I'm really coming down to the awareness that that's not the way that I want to live. I don't want to set that precedence for my children, that daddy's not as important as they are. And so I've really been trying to see him as my third baby in a way, but not as my baby child, but my baby is like my love, you know, this person that I love this fully and who gets my undivided attention. My kids walk in the room, I put everything down, I stop what I'm doing, I give them a hug, I give them a smile. Every time I pick them up from school, the phone is off, I get out of my car, I bend down, I don't talk to the teachers first, I talk to them first. Like, I make it very clear that it is a celebration when I'm with you. That you are my most important person. And I notice that if he walks in the room, I'm like, hey, what's up? There's a lot of that. And so I'm really trying to shift gears to make it equal, to treat him the way that I treat them, in the intention and love and presence. And, I'm very intentional about the way that I speak to my kids and not reacting and being a detective, not a cop, and all these types of things go for him too. And so now that I'm like really starting to shift gears and use these same strategies with him, I think it's really helpful in our dynamic feeling stronger and more connected.
Do you guys have like a date night?
We do. We have a date night, Wednesday night set. Babysitter comes every Wednesday, even if we don't. You know what we sometimes do? Don't tell my kids this. we we say bye to them, and then we like sneak up to our room, and we'll like just be in the room. We don't even go out sometimes. Like we literally just have her put them to sleep so that we can get an extra like hour or an hour and a half of just time together without having to start our night so late. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Me and my husband somewhat work from home. I kind of go in and out of the office, but we're like aching to like, let's get out. We've been home like all day.
No, but sometimes you're so exhausted and you're like, I don't want to just go waste money on food and eat crap or whatever. It's just like, okay, let's just get some time to be together.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? Another awesome. This is one of the best investments of my life. Okay. You ready for this?
Yeah.
We have a babysitter. So first of all, our grandparents aren't around. Like his parents are in New York. My dad,
okay,
necessarily the child caring, he can't be responsible for the kids. He's wonderful to play with them, but he's not in charge of them. So anyway, we don't have grandparents around for help. So babysitters are our thing. So we have a babysitter come on Saturday and Sunday mornings at 7:30 a.m. so that we get to go back to sleep. So we have those first few hours of our weekend mornings, we get to sleep in and have to ourselves before we start our day. That's huge for us.
That is huge because I know it's just like even weekends, weekdays, they're in your bedroom.
Yeah, there's no end, there's no break, and so that idea of,
I think that's why parents like going on like vacations because they're like, I can sleep in and I can wake up when I want to wake up.
Right, but that's huge. Is that when you know that that's coming and you don't have to wake up at the crack of dawn, it does wonders for your well-being and for your relationship.
And then I know this
we do have to hide in our bedroom for many hours so they don't see us. But.
And then obviously this is, I'm an open person, but like with sex and stuff, I know I've even heard of people scheduling sex. I mean, sure, I guess if you have to.
I think we have a commitment to do it like at least he would request more, but I would say at least twice a week.
Yes,
that it was once and then we decided that twice is better, so that's part of the new
so you don't have like a date or anything, but you have a set time of just like this.
We don't have a date, but the idea is that oftentimes it starts with like, we should, right? Yeah, it'd be good for us, right? Yeah, we'll be glad that we did, right? Yeah, we'll be glad that we did. Okay, should we? Yeah, there's a lot. It's the passion and the excitement and the fun of, but once we get into it, it's always great and we're always thrilled that we did. It's more of just finding the energy, and I think deciding to get into it. I actually read something about this recently, which is that women get turned on once you get going, whereas men can get turned on before you get going. And so that awareness, I think has learned to not take it personally. And we've learned that if we just initiate launch sequence, everything ends up being great. And we're always glad that we did. But if the question is ever, do you want to? The answer is always no. Like, never ask me if I want to. The answer is forever no. I never feel like it. I don't want to. Will I? Sure. Will I be glad I did? Yes. But it's never because I feel like it in this moment. So it's really, I mean, just like exercising or, do I wake up every morning being like, yes, I can't wait to exercise? No. But do I do it? Yes. And am I glad? Yes. So it's treating it and I think I also realized recently is that treating it as something that you're giving yourselves as, another self-care practice for yourself, just because all the chemicals are great, but the connection. And I think that what I realized is that, I can't speak for other men, but that the idea that men in general, or at least my husband, is, a man and he has to be strong all day and he feels like he has to hold things together and he's taking care of things. And rather than that, I think that we're often raised to see ourselves as objectified and, oh, well, he just wants sex. But he doesn't get opportunities to be vulnerable the way that we do as women. We have our girlfriends, we get to cry, there's like a softness that we get to experience more regularly, and he doesn't get to experience that. And so when I realized that, like this intimacy thing is his way of being able to let his guard down on every level is really important for him too, and seeing it as like giving him that rather than just like giving him sex, which is kind of a disconnected, icky way to engage,
Yes. Yeah, my husband's the same way. He needs that connection and he feels that. And it's just the same thing. And I'm the same way. And you made me feel a little normal saying that, like we're never, because I'm never like, if you ask me, I'm like, no, I'm not. But once I get going, yeah, sure. Except around ovulation time. And I think that's where procreation just kind of gets, just like I'm ovulating, I'm ready.
Like, game on, make a baby.
So we always joke. I'm like, he's like, are you ovulating? And I'm like, yes, yes, I am. Procreation at its finest.
I know, biology. There's nothing. It's pretty real. You realize that I think that there's another thing about motherhood is you realize at the core that we're just animals. Like you really feel like an animal. They're eating off of you. Like I always feel like either like a monkey with them climbing on me or like a mother duck with them like following behind me, like boop, 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 boop. Like I really just feel like an animal being a mother.
Yes. Oh, I remember when my daughter started like moving, when they're breastfeeding. It's so sweet because they're like infants. And then they start standing up and breastfeeding, standing on your legs. Like, what is this? What's going on?
I really have had a whole new respect for cows since I have to say, like my dairy intake has gone way down because I really have felt a lot of compassion for cows.
Yes. Your journey and your story is so powerful, and I'm so grateful that you shared it with us, and your just experience and from personally and professionally. Where can we find you, and where can we get our hands on your book, because it sounds amazing?
Thank you. So my website is going to have all the information you need. There's a place where you can submit your email address to get on the newsletter that's going to start coming out soon with kind of tidbits and advice and, those types of things, as well as guided meditations. There's a meditation that my mom did with us every night before we went to sleep. So I've got that recorded and other various, some kid-friendly kid-friendly meditations, but also this before bedtime thing, I think is a really challenging time. And this idea of having a guided meditation that you can listen to with your kids before they go to sleep is a nice little nugget. So that will all eventually be on there too. But so get on my newsletter and you'll be informed as to where to get the book and where to get how to get the meditations. And the website is jasminbalance.com. It's www.jasminb like boy, ALANCE.com, jasminbalance.com. And it should be out within the month.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Of course, I really enjoyed it.